Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I don't usually tend to do intros to my videos, or I haven't done some for a little while now, but given the topic of today's video, I thought I would do one. About 2 days ago on Instagram, I asked you guys to send over some questions for a Q&A. So thank you to everyone who sent those questions in. I had loads and loads and loads. And outside of kind of the usual, how do I get started with tech? How do I get a job in tech type of questions? The one topic which I got a lot was around programming and people's kind of frustrations with learning to code and how difficult they're finding their journey. So I thought I'd make this video to talk to you guys a little bit more about my programming journey, to dig a bit deeper about where I am now with programming, in hopes that it's going to make some of you guys feel a little bit better about your current situation, and hopefully as a community we can help each other out and just support each other with this journey. This is going to be a kind of chitty chatty video, so feel free to go grab some tea, some water. I've got some water here in my amazing water bottle. This video is not sponsored or anything. So go ahead and grab yourself a drink. And also, of course, please go like, comment and subscribe if you want to see more kind of tech, career and lifestyle content from me. So to bring you guys back to the beginning of my programming journey, I only started learning to code at my master's degree. So you guys will probably know, but if you're new here, you won't. I did my undergraduate degree in business. I did 3 years of business, and then I did my postgraduate degree in computing. So you're probably sat there thinking, God, you made a switch from business to computing. I did, yeah. It was through a conversion master's at Cardiff University. So if you are in the UK and thinking about switching over to tech from a non-technical degree, look up conversion degrees. There's a bunch of them across the country now, which is great. But anyway, I did my undergrad in business, then went on to do my postgrad in computing, and that was my first kind of step into coding and programming. Before that, I had never coded before. I had never even done IT in school. At least I don't think so. The only kind of STEM thing that I had done was obviously maths and the sciences. But I decided that I wanted to go into tech because of lots of different opportunities, the opportunity to make money, the opportunity to get a job that's in demand, and just tech at the time sounded really cool and really interesting to me. This was back in 2016, so it was kind of when things like Uber and Monzo and kind of things like that were starting to really rise, and I thought, yeah, what a great opportunity for me to move into tech. So I decided to do that conversion masters to computing. And if you kind of want to know what that entailed, etc., I can make another video about conversion degrees all up, so let me know in the comments. But for me, it was kind of a year of learning the foundations of computer science, so learning programming languages like Python and JavaScript, and then learning web development with obviously HTML, CSS, and then learning some kind of e-commerce, some other elements of kind of business tech as well. So at the beginning, programming was really tough for me, naturally, because I had come from a non-programming background and I was kind of notoriously bad at maths. So I didn't really feel like I had a foundation for learning to code or anything like that. And even though obviously I had my lectures, master's lectures don't tend to be that many days a week. But even with those lectures, I still felt like I had to do a lot of kind of extra work. So obviously learning to code at home, watching YouTube videos, Code Academy, Free Code Camp, kind of researching about programming, reading the documentation, kind of doing all of that foundation work, which I would have gotten if I had done a 3-year computer science degree. So I felt like I did a lot more outside of my lectures in order for me to feel like I was actually at a point that I could at least pass my master's degree. I remember leaving one of our earlier lectures and looking at my fiance, who did the same masters as me actually, and I said to him, I said, if this doesn't work out, thinking, yeah, I'm probably not going to pass this master's with all these kind of programming languages, then I'm just going to quit and go do marketing or something that was related to my business degree. So at the time, I had absolutely no confidence in my kind of programming abilities and whether or not I was actually going to get through this master. But throughout that year, as I said, I put in a lot of work, a lot of hours in the library. I remember once we literally did 20 24 hours in the library without leaving. We ordered food to the labs and just sat there. Coding was essentially my life for that year. I put in a lot of effort. I ate, breathed, lived programming. So by the end of my master's year, I felt a lot more confident in my coding abilities. I had done quite well in some of my exams and my coursework, and it was really just time for me to decide what career path in tech I was going to take with these new skills. But at the time, I was sure I was going to be a software engineer, because it was the one role that everyone around me was talking about. It was the role that seemed to make the most amount of sense at the time. I kind of thought if you have a computer science degree or if you know any programming, then you kind of have to be a software engineer. And it's kind of the role that, you know, makes sense. It was the route that I was supposed to do. I then started going to career fairs. A lot of companies at the time were coming to our university, to the School of Computer Science, to try and recruit new talent. And when I went around the career fairs and started speaking to those organizations, that was when I started realizing and maybe thinking that software engineer was maybe not the right role for me. When I was speaking to the software engineers at the career fairs, it didn't sound the same as Mr. Robot. I was a little bit like, this maybe doesn't sound like what I want to do, when I was hearing kind of their day-to-day activities. And that's not to say that software engineers don't do anything cool and the role isn't super like fun and some people really enjoy it. At the time, I just realized that maybe it wasn't for me. But what really put the nail in the coffin of my potential software engineering career was the interviews. I did some interviews with some companies after I had finished my master's degree, obviously because I was ready to kind of go into the market. I was driven, I was ambitious, I was like, I'm gonna get this job. And I decided that, you know what, the career fairs maybe were not a reflection of what other companies look like. So let me just give it a go. Let me just apply for roles and let's see how it goes. And honestly, you guys, it went terribly. When I was kind of listening to, again, the description of the role with the interviewer and stuff, it just didn't seem like a fit for me. And then what was even worse was kind of like when I was doing the coding practices for the interviews and doing coding exercises for the interviews as well, I just thought, oh my God, like is programming kind of for work going to be fun? Like I enjoyed it for university, but the pressure of kind of the interviews and stuff like that just made me think, maybe, or well, definitely it's not for me. When I gave up on my software engineering dreams, I decided to start exploring kind of other tech roles, other tech grad schemes that were out there. And luckily I stumbled upon the Microsoft grad scheme, and I remember reading the description and it was talking about kind of like evangelizing the products, speaking to customers, opportunities to travel, etc, etc. And this felt like this is really more me, this is really more what I want to do, and aligned more with kind of the lifestyle that I wanted with the job. You guys will know that obviously I applied for the job at Microsoft and I got it, and in the first kind of year and a half, 2 years, I was a technology strategist. It was a role that didn't require you to have deep technical knowledge, but you still needed to have kind of a good enough level of technical knowledge and product knowledge specifically to speak to your customers. And honestly, at the time, it was my dream job. I got to do everything I wanted to do. I got to travel. I was kind of flown to Vegas, Seattle, Dublin. I went on kind of work trips and went to see my customers, taking the train first class, staying at hotels, getting food. I was living the city girl dream. And so I went from kind of programming every day for my master's to a job that didn't require me to do any coding day to day. And so I didn't program at all, not even in my spare time. And I guess at the time I was thinking, well, that's it then for programming for me. I am done with it and I'm probably not going back. Until the pandemic hit. Oh gosh, guys, Corona came in and changed absolutely everything. I went from living the city girl dream to having to pack up my stuff, leaving London and moving back to Bristol to stay with my family. So no more traveling, no more being on the train, no more hotels, no more kind of food and restaurants and stuff like that, and really just stripping away all of that stuff and really just a job on its own. And by then I had been in the job for almost 2 years, and without kind of the evangelizing, kind of seeing my customers, going to conferences, speaking at webinars and stuff, I just didn't enjoy the job anymore. I was kind of bored, and so I decided to start looking for a new job, and I started thinking maybe it's time for me to go back to programming. Maybe it's time for me to dust off Visual Studio Code. Maybe I can be a software engineer. I restarted my programming journey. I remember the day where I kind of re-downloaded everything. I also actually bought programming with Mosh, one of his courses. I was like, I haven't coded for ages, I'm super rusty, let me get a course, and I'm sure after a while I'm just gonna really pick it up again. And I really got serious. I started kind of doing the 100 days of code, making sure that I code every day. I didn't make it quite every day, but programming was kind of back in my life during the pandemic. You have to think I had a lot more time because pre-pandemic I was traveling a lot for work, so I wouldn't have that much time because of the commute. But being at home, programming was something that I had the time for, and at the time my sister was also programming. She's just transitioned into being a software engineer. Shout out to you, sis. And so we were kind of doing it together. I was excited, I was motivated. That programming was kind of really back in my life at the time. I obviously started off with some of the more basic stuff, and I was excited. I was like, oh, I remember all of this. I can do a for loop. That's easy. I've got this. And then I moved on to some of the harder stuff. So obviously I wanted to test out how well I could do, build by myself and stuff like that. And girl, let me tell you, it was a reminder of why I had stopped in the first place. It is not easy. Learning to code kind of with an instructor or with a lecturer and kind of having someone support you is definitely not the same of having to do it yourself. And that's why I always say, if you're learning to code and you really want to get good at it, you have to learn to build stuff by yourself, not just watch tutorials, not just be on courses. And when I started kind of doing that stuff by myself, that frustration that I had with programming kind of in the past started creeping back in, and I was kind of thinking, God, if I can't do this on my own in my room during a pandemic where I've got nothing else to do, can I really do it for a job? And the answer was no, to be honest. Going back to programming, although it was kind of fun and it's a great skill to have, and it kind of does make you quite sharper in your other skills as well, I just realized that day to day, it's just not for me. So I gave up on programming again. I stopped learning again, and that's when I started looking for other roles other than software engineering. And of course I stumbled upon the Azure Specialist role, which I'm in now. And funnily enough, actually, as part of my Azure certification, which I have to do for the role, I did have to dust off some programming stuff because some of the labs and stuff are in JSON. So I kind of had to look back, but that was it. And I know some people might be watching this thinking, Hosanna, what are you talking about? You have a master's in computing, you learned to code for a year and then again for like 6 or 8 months, how long I was learning. Of course you know how to code. And the answer is no, girl. Learning to code is a long-term commitment. And I actually saw someone describe it or compare it to healing, that it just gets easier over time, but you continue to obviously deal with it. It doesn't stop. You never stop kind of learning when it comes to programming. And I think what is so difficult with kind of programming and being on your learning journey is that it's so easy to compare to what other people are doing and how far other people have gotten. You kind of see these videos from people like, I learned to code in 6 months, in 3 months, and I got a job at Google, I got a job at Facebook, I got a job at Netflix. And you're thinking, I was learning to code for almost 2 years and my programming skills are not good. So what are you doing that I'm not doing? Like, how are you so much better than I am? How are you so much cleverer than I am? But at the end of the day, you can't get caught up in all of that. You have to remember that everybody's path is different. Everyone has different resources available to them. Everybody has a different background. You know, some people's parents are kind of software engineers. They grew up around this stuff. It is not the same as you coming from a non-coding background at all and starting to learn. And also, frankly, people have different capabilities. They might be amazing at programming, but you might be amazing at something else. So don't kind of feel like you're less than because your programming journey is not going as fast as kind of everyone else that you see, especially on the internet. If you're currently learning to code and you're dealing with some of these frustrations, there are really 2 things that you should consider. Number one, maybe it's the way that you're learning, and that's why you're finding it difficult. Maybe you're not consistent enough. Maybe it's the learning resources that you're using. Maybe you're a visual learner and you're using documentation instead of watching YouTube videos. Maybe you're not watching the right YouTubers. Like, maybe you don't have the right laptop. There's so many things that could hinder and make it difficult for you when it comes to programming. So make sure that kind of everything that you're doing is to set you up for the right path within kind of programming and make your learning journey a little bit easier. The other thing to consider is that maybe programming isn't for you. Maybe it's just not what you want to do and you're kind of just doing it because you think you have to do it and you're trying to get into tech, etc. But it isn't for everyone. Just like anything else isn't for everyone. Art isn't for me. I'm not really an artsy girl. I'm just not, it's not me. So I'm not really going to try and really push myself with art when I know it's not my bag. And it just, with programming, it might not be for you. But that doesn't mean tech isn't for you. There may just be other roles which are more suitable for you, other skills which are more suitable for you. And I think you should feel empowered by that and start kind of considering other areas for you to look at, which are just as lucrative, just as in demand, and you're probably going to be kind of happier in your decision to go down a different path. Well, that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope anyone who's watching this and is finding kind of programming frustrating, finding it difficult, not learning within 3 months or 6 months like you see online, that you feel comfortable in knowing that other people, even myself, have the same frustrations, had the same frustrations. It's not easy, but you're definitely not alone. Please go like, comment, and of course subscribe, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.